There is absolutely zero excuses to not get a perfect photograph. Zero. Okay. If the only excuse when you have a less than stellar photograph is you're too lazy.
Welcome to The Crow's Nest, the official podcast of Candace Crow Design. Today's guest is Dr. Raghu Athré, a facial plastic surgeon with a deep passion for capturing high-quality before and after photos. In this episode, he shares how practices can capture precise and accurate photography affordably. We cover a lot, so let's get started.
Welcome, Raghu. I'm telling you, I'm so excited to have you on the Crow's Nest podcast.
Well,
You
thank you.
cannot imagine how many times we get asked about quality before and afters. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart. It is essential, I think, for patient education, for having medically correct legal records, for just so many things. And especially with the way AI is going, we'd really need to get a handle on it sooner than later. So I know
Absolutely.
you have a lot of experience with before and afters. We had a conversation almost a year ago, I think, where you just kind of blew me out of the volcano with how much information you knew about before and afters and your take on things. So let's just start out with, tell me about your passion for before and afters and how it got started and a little bit about you and your practice and where you want to go.
All right. So first of all, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah.
You kind of blew me out of the water a couple weeks ago when you called me up and said, "Hey, listen, that conversation we had about photography, and I've been kind of stalking me on Instagram and such, and I really want to talk about before and afters." You kind of, threw a little curveball at me, and I was like, "Whoa, okay, people are actually noticing this, the stuff that I'm putting out there." So I have been somewhat of a photography buff in general since probably high school. Just playing around with cameras and trying to take better photos and this and that. It's been kind of a hobby of mine. I really jumped into this, what I called high-end before and after photography, I would say about 3 to 4 years ago. And I jumped into the deep end of the swimming pool. I've always kind of dinked around with it. And I'm like every other surgeon. You see a website, probably every couple of years, you need to update your website. So you go see other websites, go, oh, their photography is better. I need a new camera. Okay. And then you go buy a new camera, or you go to a trade show and they have something cool, you go buy it because you think that these things are going to get you better before and after photos. And all of that is a myth. Okay. It's all bah humbug. You can buy millions and millions of dollars, or you can buy pretty simple stuff and get phenomenal quality. And I mean, I've shown you several photographs, and I know you're going to share several of the photographs. So I'm more than happy to share my experience in it. I've wasted a lot of money. I've saved a lot of money. I've done every experiment in between, but at the end of the day, before and after pictures are crazy important. Number one, as we said, all of us here are plastic surgeons. We're always looking for, or I guess maybe there may be some people who are dermatologists and other people that are in this kind of avenue. And we're looking to market ourselves. We want people to see what we can do. And the quality of the equipment is so, I mean, like this, the cell phone takes amazing photographs. So your patients are expecting it. Okay, they're expecting that kind of photography. So so we need to learn how to do it well. And then so there's the marketing portion of it. And then, as you very well stated, there's this other whole side of things, which is record keeping, legality, and for me, I look at it as a surgical planning tool. So I need accuracy because when I'm sitting and doing my homework ahead of time, going, what am I going to do in the OR? I need those photos to be very accurate so that I can, measure draw, do whatever other things that I need to do to prepare for the case.
Absolutely. Yeah. Are you one that will print the photo out and take it into surgery with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So one of two things. I either, hold on, I'll actually show you what I do. So I will print it, draw it on hand. I make all sorts of little notes of millimeters. So you can see her nose before, tracing paper. So world's the oyster. I mean, we all do different things. So, especially for example, for rhinoplasty, I do a lot of revision rhinoplasty. And this is my preparation for me that I can, so I know what I'm going to do in the OR before I even get there. And so, yeah, I definitely, and even on facelifts, I printed out things like little things like on a lip lift. Sometimes I have different modifications that I want to do or try out, draw it out.
You know, maybe just a couple days ago, I was listening to NPR and they were talking about this study that they did with resident anesthesiologists. And there would be a group that went in and on that they did on babies, and they didn't have any pre-coaching. They went in and the senior one guided them through it. And then there was a group that they tested them and had them study what they were going to do before, and then didn't go in with them. And the people that studied it before had a better rate of success than the people that were just coached through it.
Yeah.
It's called visualization. Every sports team does that. Like,
Absolutely. Remind me at the end of this, I can share with you a video. I'm actually just going to put it up on my Instagram, I think, in a couple of days. And every case, I have a white marker board in the operating room, and I will write down the steps of the case. And I actually, when I recorded that video, I had my assistant record the video. I'm erasing, like I make mistakes, but it's a sequencing thing for me and how, so it allows me to mentally do the surgery in my head before I'm there.
absolutely.
And it cuts down surgical time. It cuts down on, this indecision in the operating room. There's a lot of different things, and it really does make you more efficient. And I go back at one of my mentors taught me something. He goes, poor planning leads to piss poor performance. And I think that's it, that's where it is.
Yeah. So before and afters aren't just for a photo gallery, they're actually for a better result as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things that, our people we come in contact with, they just shove a camera in front of somebody's face and think that they're going to be able to take a photo. I have learned that is not everybody doesn't see through the eye of a camera the same way. When I first started working with plastic surgeons, I kind of put them into two groups. They're the people that follow the books, and then there's the artists that are the tailors, and they kind of play a little bit differently. The artist will see a composition. They'll see lines differently. They don't follow the rules exactly. They do have a plan in place and they're very fully educated on things, but they come to the canvas just a little bit differently. So when they go behind the eye of a camera, they think about composition. They think about the top of the head or the Frankfurt plane or those kind of things. So what have you found?
So I think you're absolutely dead on. But I'm going to add a slightly different take on this. Okay. So I'm going to change the topic a little bit because it'll relate to what we're doing.
Good.
So one of my hobbies that I'm trying to do right now, I'm learning the violin. Okay. So when you're learning the violin, so I have a teacher who teaches me, and of course, being a overachiever, and I want to kind of go faster and faster and faster, and I want to move through the lessons more quickly. And she will say, "No, you're going to do this my way. Okay? I need you to learn a certain set of basic rules. You're going to become proficient in those basic rules, and then you can see what works in your hands." Okay. And then, like now in retrospect, this is exactly what we do in surgery. So when we're in surgery and you're in residency, the attending tells you this is how you're going to do it. There's no like, negotiation in this. Okay. Now, as you become more and more and more proficient, okay, there's some people that stop at that space and they
Mm,
don't move
gotcha.
forward. And then there's this other group that goes, ooh, I got a better way to do this. So
Gotcha.
I think that with the photography, it's the same thing. So we're not talking art photography. Okay, that's a whole different box right there. We're talking before and afters. So there is some guideline rules. You have to stay with these rules and you've got to become proficient in that task set. Once you're very proficient in that task set, now you can kind of play a little bit and you can go, okay, I like this photo better. I like this photo better, but you got to hit, this foundation first.
Absolutely. Yeah. So do you make a differentiation between clinical before and after photos and marketing before and after photos?
No, no.
Tell me about that.
Okay. So, first of all, I think it's important to discuss the generation where we are right now. We are no longer, and probably a lot of people who are seeing this podcast will not even know what I'm talking about. We're not in 35 millimeter zone where I got to shoot a roll of film and go to Walgreens or Eckerd Drugs to go get it developed. You have an opportunity to see the photo right then and there. There is absolutely zero excuses to not get a perfect photograph. Zero. Okay. If the only excuse when you have a less than stellar photograph is you're too lazy. Okay. Because even in my hands, I'd say I'd probably hit a perfect photo 98 times out of 100 or 95 times. But 5 times out of 100, you look at the photo and you go, doesn't look good. What do I need to change? And that's the time to change it. Okay. Whatever it is, whether the camera was held incorrectly, angle, this, that, whatever, lighting, flash didn't fire, whatever that picture looks like. So that I think is super important. And if you can hit that, keep yourself at 100%, this is what I want, then you're good. So then your marketing photograph is a very simple exercise of how you're putting stuff together. It's not anything, it's not like, oh, these are clinical. And then, oh my God, now I have to like bring the patient in for the, no. Like what we actually do, once you become really good at this, we have a fun day. We bring the patients in for a fun day. And on a fun day, since I love photography, I will tell them to get all dolled up. And then we go and do crazy things like shoot black and white photos downstairs, outside, natural lighting, the whole 9 yards. Now that's a marketing photo.
Yeah,
Okay. But, for regular what you're putting on Insta or Facebook or your gallery, those are everyday clinical photographs.
absolutely. Those marketing, we'll call them marketing photos, the fun day
Call
photos.
it artsy fartsy. That's what I
They,
call it.
they are, but they tell a story.
Right.
And that's the reason people get plastic surgery usually is because they want to feel better about themselves or they want, so it's just, it's not wrong to use those. I just probably wouldn't use them in your before and after gallery.
Correct. They have a very specific
Yeah.
purpose. Okay. And that
And
purpose is
they're so much better than Shutterstock.
right. Absolutely.
It's like
So
Shutterstock is so unrealistic and so overused that it's like you can reverse look up one and 300 different practices use the same one.
correct. There's this one photograph of I think about a 55-year-old lady who's got whitish, blonde whitish. I'd say 90% of plastic surgeons have that same lady, looking over her shoulder. I mean, it gets boring, right?
It, it, it gets obnoxious.
So I had a very cool Indian patient who I did her eyelids on, and she's got this beautiful almond shape eye. I mean, it's just the way she is, okay?
Um,
And she loves to do like the little bat wing makeup thing, very stylized. So I took a black and white photograph of her eye, and all you see is her eye. But
Wow.
use that for when we want to do a presentation about eyes or whatever it is, that's our go-to photograph because that picture says everything about the eye.
Yeah. So getting back to a little bit to clinical before and afters, last time we talked, you mentioned one of the things that you do, and you take the perfect set and you hang it on the wall. So that I thought that was genius. Oh my gosh, how simple but hard. You have to go through all that you said was get the basics down, become proficient, get the settings down, print them, frame them, put them on the wall. That probably takes, 10 hours right there.
True. So, I'm going to break this down into steps. So first of all, I'm going to guess that the largest demographic of people watching this podcast are probably doctor, surgeon, some sort of practitioner. Okay.
They're mostly plastic surgeons, office staff, a few
Right.
dermatologists, but mostly plastic surgeons.
Got it. So therefore, first of all, someone's got to take responsibility. Okay. As the surgeon being the top of the totem pole, I think it's your job to take responsibility. Okay. So most of these cameras are now what, a couple $1,000, 3, 4 thousand bucks. And I would say that, a lot of surgeons have this idea, oh, let them take the photographs. I don't have time for that. Okay. And then when it's time to create a new web page, all of a sudden it's like, where are all the photographs? Okay. Like this is so first of all, it's like leadership top down. Okay. So what I did is I came in on a weekend. I brought my dad in, okay, had him sit down, and we probably took 200 photographs that day, okay, with every possible setting, okay. And I can tell you right off the bat, I can give the viewer some basics. Number one, you need to be shooting with a 70 millimeter lens if you're going to be using a digital camera, a digital full frame camera. Use a 70 millimeter lens, okay. Number two, I would probably there's 3 or 4 main variables that you've got. You've got shutter speed, you've got ISO, and you've got f-stop. Okay, so how I would do this is use an ISO 400, which is pretty neat and easy. I would use an f-stop of about 8 or 9 at least. Okay, that way you've got the depth of field that you need, and then you can adjust the shutter speed in order to get the exposure that you want.
That
So there it keeps it real simple. So once you've got these magical settings, okay, then write them down like this. And so therefore, what I do is I have a camera. Here, I'll show you. It's written, I don't know if you can read it on there. It says photo camera. Okay. So this camera is dedicated for photos. Those settings are put on there. Okay. And as I showed you, we have the perfect set of photos with the perfect exposure. And then the settings are written on that too. So in case someone screws it up here, they first thing they can do is let me check the settings and make sure that the settings are normal. But all of that's got to go top down. You've got to be able to do this first, do it for the first 10, 15 patients. Then you can start delegating it to somebody else because you've got to work through, they're going to have problems. I mean, you get someone in your office and you say, here's this $4,000 camera, go take some photos. There's a fear factor.
good luck, right? Good luck with that. Yeah. Just so if you're listening, we're going to write an article of this and we'll put all these tips that Raghu is talking about in that article. So you can print it out. There's no excuses. No excuses. Uh,
Zero.
yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the camera and the setup that you've come up with. Um, you've spent all this time to work on that, talked a little bit about camera. Let's talk about some of the other equipment.
Okay. So I've played around with a bunch of things. I know that there's a lot of commercially available, like, studio in a box type of thing. I mean, I've done tons of research on this. And for example, there's a company, I think they're based out of Germany, where they have this, it looks like a pole, and you can attach the camera to the pole and it slides up and down the pole. mean, they all look neat, but these things are five to some of them are 10, $15,000 just for the setup without any of the other camera and lens equipment. So I've come up with kind of a neat, simple system, and I don't have a huge amount of space in my office for like a dedicated, full-on studio type of thing. We've done that in the past, and it just is not space or cost effective. So what do? I use a Sony just because I like it. I think the quality is great and it also doubles as a video camera very well. So it
Mm.
does a lot of video very well. It can shoot video in 4K very well. So that I like that dual purpose of it. Um, do I have any like does Sony give me a kickback? No. Okay. It's just I've played around and now I think Nikon and Canon are catching up on the complete digital type the mirrorless systems.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just not as familiar with those systems.
Yeah, just a
Um,
quick question. Does yours have a leveler on it so that you know that
yeah,
it
yeah.
does?
So the camera itself has like what you do is what you can
Yeah,
set it up and it'll tell you if the camera's level. So
exactly.
yeah, so it has a couple of different settings where you can actually superimpose the leveler on the photograph so you know if you're level, and then you
Wow.
can also superimpose a grid on the photograph so you can actually square up the face and the eyes and all that. So it's really cool. So you can there's a lot of these little tools that you can do on the camera itself, so you don't need additional stuff. The next main investment where you don't want to skimp on is the lens. Okay. I use a Sigma art lens. Sony makes a Sony lens as well. They're both really good. The Sony lens is a little bit more expensive. The Sigma is a little cheaper, and from what we do, the quality is equivalent. You're not going to be able to tell the difference. Um, I chose the slightly cheaper lens for a reason. This type of equipment gets banged around a lot in an office. You can
Mm.
expect the lifespan of this equipment to be about 3 years. So expect that every 3 to 4 years, you're going to probably buy a new lens or a new camera. Since you're banging it around a lot, sometimes you're going to drop it. Like just it happens, okay? And it's nobody's fault. Just stuff happens.
Just think about how many times you drop your phone.
Correct. Exactly. And then I sent you the links for the flash system.
Absolutely. We'll put
Yeah.
all those links in the show notes.
So the reason I like that flash system, it can be run on a total wireless mode. So there's no wires around. You can hook it up anywhere you want. And I even included a couple of brackets where you can mount it on a wall or anything. So it's pretty robust. And I mean, so you basically have a little adapter, goes on the phone, shoot it. When you push the trigger, the flash fires, all wireless. And so you can really, and then you just look at the photo and say, okay, too much flash, drop it down a little bit, whatever you need to do.
So you said phone, put it on the phone. Did you mean put it on the camera?
Yeah, put it on the camera. There's
Yeah, that's what
adapter,
I
sorry,
thought.
there's a little small
Yeah.
adapter
Yep.
that talks to the flash units, and you
Yeah.
just put that on the camera. And so when you push the trigger on the camera, the strobes will fire wirelessly.
So the strobes you mount, how do you mount them? Do you mount them up?
You
How do
can
you
do,
mount
you have multiple different things that you can do. In our office, what we've done, I sent you a photograph of our setup. We have a hallway. At the end of the hallway, we've set up this little we've mounted the strobes a little higher and kind of bouncing downwards.
them? Okay.
Um, the the ideal, you don't want to have it straight in the face. You kind of almost want a softer light. Okay. Um, you do want to have some sort of diffusion in front of the strobe so that the light is broken up a little bit. Otherwise, you get this really harsh. You'll get like if you're shooting on either side, you're going to get this white spot here and a white spot here where that flash is just kind of almost like burning the exposure of the skin. So this will kind of soften that light up a little bit.
Now, how do you handle fluorescent lighting, the lighting that's already in the office?
So this is the reason why you've really got to go and shoot those 300 photographs. So all these cameras have a compensation for that. So what you've got to do is there is a little small gray card. It's available on Amazon. It's available on any camera store. And basically you just tape it up to the wall and you can do a custom white balance with your fluorescent lights on. And that basically zeroes out the fluorescent light. If you don't want to do that, they actually have a mode on the camera for fluorescent light, and therefore it'll white balance out the fluorescent light.
That's great. That's great to hear both of those suggestions. Some will take the time to do the white balance, and others are going to want to just use the automatic.
The automatic. The advantage with the doing that little card business is, I forget, there's a very specific percentage gray that photographers use to do this white balance. So light changes over time because, for example, even the fluorescents or halogens or whatever, their intensity may change as the bulb gets older, this, that, all this stuff. So every once in a while, you probably should white balance the camera again. Like if you take a look, most of these endoscopic surgeons white balance their camera before endoscopic surgery every single time for every surgery. So, it is something that I think that's kind of I don't do it every day or anything. It's probably once every 3 to 4 months. Just, you got a slow day, white balance it. You'll notice certain things on your
Yes.
photos if your butt are kind of skewing away from the 100% line and then okay, I need to do some preventative maintenance.
So now there's another element, and it's morning, noon, and afternoon lighting. And is yours in a place where that's not affected at all, or what should somebody do if their photo location is in a place where it's affected by lighting
Okay.
or the daylight?
My personal one is not affected by change in lighting. If your photo room is like let's say there's an outside light or a window or something like that, 99 times out of 100, what's going to happen is you're not going to use the window as the background. You're going to use another wall as the background. So what you're going to do is mount the flashes in such a way that the flash power is probably going to be much higher than what light is coming in from the outside. So this is why, so unless, for example, let's say it's 12 noon and the sun is streaming in from the window, okay? And then you're later on that evening, it's 8 o'clock at night and you want to take a photo. There may be some small modification. That's why you have to look at the photo after you've taken it. One of the good modifications that you can make on that is just change the shutter speed or the f-stop. So if you want to take the shutter speed a little bit faster when it is super bright, and then when it is really dark outside, slow down the shutter speed a little bit, you can offset that and get a pretty good exposure. The rule of thumb is that you always want to select a shutter speed faster than 1/60th of a second. Okay, so because at 1/60th, if you go below 1/60th of a second, you're going to see a little bit of shake in the photograph because your hand or your heartbeat will cause a bit of shake in the photograph. So above 1/60th of a second, you'll freeze the motion.
Awesome. So we've talked about camera, we've talked about lighting, we've talked about a location. What about backdrop? What about backdrop, and do you use something that they stand on? Both of
Okay.
those.
Awesome possum. The backdrop in today's world is this is one of the most awesome things because you get to do what you want. 10 years ago, this was not the case. 10 years ago, you had to have this really baby blue background, and it looks so 1969. And if you presented a paper anywhere without the baby blue background, I mean, I've seen reviewers like like not take the paper just because they used a non-standard background. So today that those trends are gone, use whatever background you want. I like a light gray background. I think that it is contemporary enough and shows enough contrast from the skin tissue tones that you can see all the detail that you want. You really don't want to use a white background, like super white, because you can really wash out a lot of details. For the actual background material, you've got several different options. Okay, so option one, they make background fabric, okay, that you can use. Some of the disadvantages of background fabric, especially in a surgeon's office, it does tend to collect dust, and if you're taking post-op photos with blood or anything like that, it's a potential infection thingamajiggy. Another cool option is background paper. And background paper is exactly what it sounds like. So it's a huge roll of paper. It comes in all different colors. You pick the color you want, and you can get basically a stand, and the it's like a big toilet paper roll stand type of thing, just bigger size. You slide the roll on it and pull the roll down and shoot photos till your heart's content. And every week or so, you just rip the paper off, keep pulling the next segment down. So that's another option. What we use in our office is I have actually taken paint that I like the color of, and I have painted that wall with an absolute flat, zero sheen color. It looks really nice and it works well.
I love that. Very practical, very
Yeah,
practical,
and it's
very
cleanable.
practical. It's
And the other thing that you want to make sure is when you do take the pictures, you want the subject to not be right up against the background. You want them to be a little bit distance. That'll reduce the shadowing behind them.
so, also your setup does not sound very intimidating. I see some of these setups, with tripods and big equipment and here we're talking about putting a patient in. For you it's the face, but for plastic surgeons it could be the body, and um we don't want the patient experience to be intimidating. We want to be able to get releases and use all those for education. And, when you make it, such a elaborate setup, it can be a bit intimidating to the patient.
Correct. And I think a lot of this also, this is where that top-down philosophy really comes from. So I'll tell you point blank with zero uncertainty. If I ask my staff to get photo consent from patients, their success rate is less than 20%.
Wow.
And I ask for photo consent for my patients, my success rate is over 95%. And I'm doing the face.
And you're
Okay.
doing the face.
Okay. So number one, I mean, this is your practice. This is your work. This is what you do. You want to sell you got to own it.
Exactly. I love that. And the last time we talked, you also talked about, go to the luxury store. Can
Yeah.
and look at that photography there,
Yeah, I mean, go to a Rolex store, and you don't have to buy a Rolex, but they'll give you the brochure. Look at the brochure. And I think, when you look at, let's say, for example, I do faces, and there's a standard series of poses that we use for the face, but I do additional poses because how did I get this idea? Well, I saw a dude's presentation. I'm like, that's brilliant. I like that. Okay. Or when I see something on Instagram and I go, ooh, I should do that. So, learn from other people. What is the thing? Flattery, no, what is it? Copying is the best type of flattery, or something to that effect. So, as we're trying to talk about the perfect exposure, I think it's also important, like, for example, if you're doing body photos, okay, I mean, go ahead and find a surgeon or a web page and you go, I really like their poses, print them out, put it in front of you. And then when, like, if I were a body surgeon, I'd make my wife come up here in a bikini one day, put these pictures, shoot the pictures, and go, what settings and what lighting and everything am I getting closest to what I like? So you have a goal to get at.
Absolutely. Um I'm not a plastic surgeon or a facial plastic surgeon. I'm a wannabe patient, and I look at before and afters, and I can kind of feel like which doctor respects the patient just by the way they take the pictures.
Yep.
And if you've got crummy, god awful photos and using these little paper panties and you're putting that on your website, I go, I'm not going to go to that doctor.
Right. I mean, it's intimidating enough to tell somebody, hey, these are my issues about myself, which I'm self-conscious about. Can you
Yeah,
imagine standing there in paper panties?
I really can't.
Right. So that's
It just makes me shiver all over.
right. And so which brought you made me think of something earlier, which we changed and I want to come back to. So when you do take patient photographs, you have to have a very jovial,
Yeah.
medial, comical relationship with your patient. I mean, like there are going to be snafus. There's going to be a day when the flash doesn't work. And then you go, okay, you're like, yep, we're having an IT day. Okay. And you got to blow it off and you got to go figure out what. I mean, I had a patient the other day. I couldn't figure out why something wasn't working. Okay. We must have taken 40 or 50 pictures of her till we finally figured it out. And one of my staff had changed some setting and I didn't know what was changed and dot, dot, dot. Okay. So, we laugh and I'm like, hey, do you need sunglasses yet for the flash going off? I mean, you've got to have some degree of this, let it
Yeah.
roll off your back. Number one,
Yeah.
body photographs. And I saw this at a practice, and I think this is the greatest idea, a small portable heater.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Okay. So a small portable heater, women are naturally cold. You're going to ask them to get undressed. Get a small portable heater. Three, get a robe. Okay. Go ahead, spend $10, monogram your logo on the robe. So when you take the photograph, guess what? It looks elegant.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are really good tips. Absolutely. Maybe even some slippers for the feet so they don't get
Do
cold.
that. Yeah.
All of that comes through in the photograph.
Hmm.
You can read that.
Right.
Kind-heartedness goes a long way. I call them unexpected delights. If you
Yeah.
can figure out how to put some unexpected delights in your photo taking and a couple little laughters here or there, yeah, I think that'll go a long way in being able to get retakes if you need to, but just really good authentic photos. You
And,
know,
and if
um,
you make this process simple for patients, they come back to you. Like I have patients that will come back and go, those photos you took of me, can I please get a copy of them? Like when
yeah,
I do these like artsy fartsy photos,
yeah,
every patient asks me. And so now we have this idea of like, what I should do is create like a little album or something
yeah.
of their little like, hey, thank you so much for being,
Oh, I love that.
you know,
Yeah, a take home. And then they share it with somebody else. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, they keep it in their purse. And where did
right.
you get your rhinoplasty done? Where'd you get your eyes done? Well, let me show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I do want to bring back up this luxury brand and
Yeah.
you know, the people you serve buy Bentleys and Rolex and Gucci and a facelift, what's maybe $30,000. And if you're only spending $10 on your photography, um, can you
Yeah.
speak to that? I mean,
Absolutely. So we need to look at the fact that what we are offering our patients is a luxury product,
yeah,
okay? And put it in comparison with other luxury products, okay? A facelift's about 30, 35, 40,000 bucks. I mean, that's a car. And that's not a Honda Accord. That is a fancy car. That is a Rolex, probably all gold, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Go walk into the Rolex store, ask to get a brochure. Look at what they are doing in terms of how they are captivating you with their brochure. You get that brochure, you want a Rolex. Okay. It brings you in. Forget reading anything. Just look at the pictures. So there is an art to this. So as I said, first. So make a conscious decision that this is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So say, yes, I want to improve this and I want to get to that level where my photo looks like a Rolex watch.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Stage one, get amazing clinical photographs. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the basics. And then go to the next thing. So I think that, you know, it starts with that. It's like a 12-step program. You got to recognize that I want this. This is what my competition's doing. These are what other brands are doing. It's not just Rolex. Go to any car brand. Go and, look at these luxury brands. Do market research. See what they're bringing to the game.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if we're lucky, 20% will even do something about improving their photography, but we're going to give you all the tools, all of the, everything's going to be in the show notes, links to where you can buy the camera and this and that. Um, so
I
really,
don't even mind if people want to call me up and go, yo, I have a quick question. I'm happy to share.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. One last, at least let's talk a little bit about the smartphone and the distortion problem there. And um, I hear every single day probably that my iPhone takes just as good pictures as a mirrorless SLR. And I know that's not true.
So
But
we have to
there's
look at the science of it. Okay,
yeah,
so since we're all scientists, let's look at the science of it.
there you
So
go.
when we say as good, that is a very subjective statement. So we have to look at what our smartphone is good for certain things. So the lens that most smartphones have, whether it doesn't matter Android or iPhone, is a wide angle lens. It wants to capture um, a larger breadth of the field. Okay. So as I said earlier, you want this 70 millimeter kind of shot. This thing doesn't have a 70 millimeter lens. Trust me, I've searched high and low about finding an old phone and popping the lens out. And I'm an engineer from a previous life. I've done, it's not worth it. And I sent you the photograph. I'm sure you can probably
Yep,
superimpose
we're
this
gonna
here.
put that in the video.
Yeah, you can superimpose it of a picture shot with a smartphone and a picture shot with an SLR. I mean, it looks like two separate people. When you shoot it with the smartphone, you get this very distorted faces. Okay, so you are distorting these things because of the curvature of the lens. It's called parallax, and that's what is giving you that distortion. So is it easy? Yeah, it's easy. Is the quality of the phone in terms of the megapixel fantastic? Absolutely. However, if you want accuracy and you want to up your game, this is the weenie way out, and it's not going to work. So
I love that. I'm gonna quote you on that. This is the weenie way out.
yeah.
But that leads me to also on a smartphone, a smart device, where do you store the photo?
Lots of major issues. So we have to, this is, I think, a good time to talk about HIPAA. So everybody knows what HIPAA is. We don't need to go into that. Privacy is really important. When you start shooting stuff on a smartphone or an iPhone, you've got a lot of drama with where you're storing it, what's in the cloud, dot, 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 dot. And it just, and because this thing, when you save something on here, it's saving it on the camera photo roll, it's saving it in the photo section. If you're, there's lots of drama. So another reason why I don't like it. Um, you have complete control on the SLR where you're storing the photos. So what I do, and this is my recommendation, okay? So some of the premises for this is as follows. The quality of these photos are getting higher and higher. Some of these photos are probably 10 megabytes, 12 megabytes, and this is what your customer is asking for. This is not just me saying I'm going to shoot it at this quality. Your customer is wanting to put it on their screen and pinch out and not lose detail. So, and these cameras can, like, for example, my Sony can shoot a photo and I could probably blow it up to bigger than billboard size without losing detail. So the technology's there. So when you're getting these big sized images, storing it on your EMR program, which most of them are cloud-based, not really functional. So what we do, we have a server here. I've got a 12 terabyte drive. Okay. And I have a firewall. So you need an IT guy to set this up for you. And essentially, when you're shooting stuff in here, you store everything. There's a photo drive and it's backed up on itself. So in case one drive fails, it's every night it's backed up onto itself. So basically, I have 6 terabytes and 6 terabytes. I got an email the other day from my IT guy who monitors it every couple months and says, yo, you're running out of space. We need to get another one. So cool, awesome. So I was like, let's get another one and then we'll go 2025 to whatever. So it's all cataloged.
I I really admire your nerdiness.
Thanks.
I'm telling you, I really, there's very few facial plastics or plastic surgeons that will take the time to just dive in that much and then be open enough to share it. And even to be able to take a call from somebody that that wants some help. So really,
Frustration, right? Because if you're shooting these you're like, okay, so you jump into this swimming pool. You're going, I want these beautiful pictures. Now you're getting these beautiful pictures. Cool. Now every day you want to upload it to Nextech, and you're sitting there, trying to stab your eyeball as you see the little thing rotating. It's very frustrating. So then, you got to go, okay, what's the solution for that? So what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
yeah.
So you learn how to just kind of figure out how to do it in the most efficient time and cost.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can't just leave them hanging because, like I said, only 20% will probably even lift a finger to do better photos. There are options available that, aren't as good. But there's one coming out that may be pretty good, and you're involved with that. So let's take a moment just to talk about that.
So I'm involved with a project. It's called Perfect Photo, and Perfect Photo it's okay. I mean, I'm going to be very blunt and I'm going to be very honest about it. It's is it the if you say I want to compete with Rolex photography and Omega photography, no, that's not what its purpose is. But if you are an office where you just have nobody who can take photographs, this is the weenie way out. Okay. So you're using an iPad or a tablet or an iPhone to do this. So right off the bat, you're accepting that there is going to be some degree of distortion. Okay. But, if you've got a MA in your office, she's more likely to hold this in her hand and feel secure than a $4,000 camera. The fear factor is there. And but the primary goal of Perfect Photo is more for the marketing side as opposed to anything else. So in today's world, you're really having to um, push photographs to Facebook, Instagram, all these things, and have multiple content posts a day. That I think is the strong suit of Perfect Photo, and that's what it's really designed for. It's designed for the ability to be able to take, hey, I've got Candace here and I'm doing her lip injection. Boom, before, boom, after, stitch, Facebook, and just keep cranking that all day long. So if you want to do
Absolutely.
that, then I think that's where it's really geared for. Now, in terms of a comprehensive, like a gallery, this, that, all that kind of stuff, I really think, first of all, your SLR is your best option. But if you are, and there are some plastic surgeons who may be seeing, I don't know, 50 patients a day, they don't have the time. Who knows? I mean, like if you're doing a very busy med spa type practice and they're like, I need photos, I can't sit there and super see all of this. This is a simple solution where you can grid line up, shoot, grid line up, shoot.
I love that there's an option like that, Raghu. The horrific thing would be if they didn't take any photos at all.
Correct. So this is kind of It's the weenie way out.
And,
Okay.
and it's a safety net. So
Safety net.
we would encourage you to use a mirrorless SLR and, all of the professional equipment and get your settings down and all that. Practice. But, if you just can't,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think, if, okay, so my practice is a complete surgical practice.
yeah,
That's all I do.
yeah.
But I can understand, like, or maybe you need to have a two-tier system where surgical procedures, I got to do this. But if you have an esthetician and a couple of injectors, you go, hey, I'm using this kind of off-the-shelf solution for them because there it's more of a numbers game as opposed to Rolex photography. But surgical procedures, I mean, I I think there's a zero excuse tolerance policy.
All right, awesome. We've covered a lot of things. Is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to, Raghu? And I've got one last question at the end.
Okay. The only thing that I want to tell people out there, every one of us surgeons, okay, we go to a conference, you see a new laser, you see something, you want it, right? And these things are 70 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand, and we don't even think twice about signing off on. I will tell you, this investment of time and energy will pay you dividends at 10 to 100 times the ROI of that laser. I mean, it is that simple and it requires patience. And, if you have the patience to go to 4 years of med school, plus residency, plus fellowship, don't give up on this. I mean, learn it, just do it.
I just feel like I've been, preaching to the wind for 11 years about before and afters, and it just blesses my heart to meet you and hear how passionate you are about it and how you work at it. Um, if, somebody's not going to do the whole deal, if they're not going to buy the camera, if they're not going to take a weekend, have their parent, their father come in or their wife in a bathing suit, give them one tip that they can do to improve their photography immediately. One tip.
Go out today to Instagram or websites, just flip through, find something you like,
Yeah.
out those photographs and go, this is my goal. Okay.
I
That's
love
it. This is the goal. Okay. And then as you're taking photographs for the patients, slowly improve over the next whatever. I mean, I need to get it done today type of guy. Okay. I don't like, let me try this out for the next 6 months. I'm
yeah.
get right here, right now. But just go out there and say, I like this guy's photos. Cool. Awesome. Print them out, put them on your desk and go, how do I get from where I am to there?
That's an excellent tip to close our podcast today on. And Raghu, I can't tell you how thankful I am for you sharing your knowledge and being on the podcast today.
It was
And
awesome. I had a lot of fun.
yeah, so thank you.
All right.